No, I don't foresee it, but it's more or less like a ruthless type of feeling.
No, I don't anticipate it, but it feels more or less like a vicious emotion. Extremely brutal for many years, Bob. Al Kooper and Dylan were mentioned together as icons of the 1960s music revolution. Through enduring partnerships like a Rolling Stone, their names were inscribed in rock history. However, something more darker was developing behind the stage lights, the Hammond organ, and the harmonicas. Bob Dylan finally spoke up today after years of silence, and his revelations regarding Al Kooper shocked the music industry. The disclosure wasn't subtle at all. Dylan claims that the legend of Kooper as a cherished studio whiz and musical prodigy only revealed a portion of the truth. Kooper had long been a source of animosity, strife, and division behind closed doors, and now the secrets are finally coming to light. Consider that historic June 1965 day. Kooper, who wasn't even meant to be present in any official capacity at the Like a Rolling Stone recording session at Columbia Records in New York City, famously slipped in and bluffed his way onto the Hammond organ. The outcome is a sound that is historic. However, the musicians in the room experienced something quite different from what the general public perceived as brilliance. Irritation. While Dylan might have enjoyed the experience, others did not. According to reports, Kooper irritated guitarist Mike Bloomfield, who is famed for his blazing blues licks. Bloomfield reportedly told a close acquaintance he didn't belong there, and Kooper would carry that sentiment for the majority of his career. His tendency to get involved in projects that were occasionally accepted but not always became a frequent source of dispute. Al Kooper had strong musical sensibilities, but his demeanor frequently ran afoul of the very musicians he worked with. He was perceived as brazen, overly ambitious, and occasionally manipulative. Dylan has since acknowledged that many people in the scene saw Kooper as a necessary evil whose musical abilities somewhat overshadowed his human shortcomings rather than as a peer. It would have been quite crazy if you had been there, but I'm just a little upset that I can't be there. Consider Cooper's brief and tense time with Blood, Sweat and Tears, a band he helped start. Creative disagreements swiftly turned into heated disputes. Kooper had an idea for a horned rock band. The other members of the group saw anything different. Depending on who you believe, he was either outpushed or jumped within months. In any case, his departure was characterized by years of silence and resentment. Kooper's issues with his bandmates persisted into studio sessions with well-known artists like Lynyrd Skynyrd. Tensions were frequently high. Although he produced their first 3 albums, insiders claim that his dictatorial personality and perfectionism caused frequent outbursts. According to reports, Ronnie Vanz became weary of Cooper's Yankee haughtiness, an attitude that repeatedly surfaced during recording sessions. After Van Zandt accused Kooper of burying the band's essence beneath a slick production, one engineer recalled a near-physical altercation. They did not finish The Grudge, but they did finish the record. Additionally, there were issues with session musicians, some of whom declined to work with Kooper again after just one encounter. One bassist recounted Kooper smoking nonstop and shouting caustic comments in between songs while insisting on more than 50 takes of the same riff and refusing to make any concessions. Others claimed that Kooper micromanaged so much that meetings resembled dictatorship more than teamwork. Additionally, engineers, producers, and artists weren't the only ones that collaborated with Kooper. Characterized a man who tended to talk over other people and didn't take criticism well. He would disregard timetables completely, override decisions, and remove mixtures without notice because he wanted things his way or not, which led to delays and budget overruns. The outcome Kooper was frequently exceptional and equally frequently by themselves. Some claim that even though the road to success was paved with broken hearts and bruised egos, The only reason he continued to be hired was because the final product was too good to ignore. Kooper's talent for setting bridges on fire was among his most remarkable life traits. He developed a lifelong resentment toward Steve Katz after their blood, sweat, and tears feud, with Katz once calling Kooper unworkable in private. Their hostility went far beyond conflicts in the studio. According to reports, Katz would go decades without communicating to one another, and would not go to industry functions if Kooper was on the guest list. The musical circle they formerly shared was further shattered when mutual acquaintances were compelled to take sides. Kooper had conflicts with jazz musicians even outside of the rock genre, who believed his crossover experiments denigrated the genre. Kooper allegedly stormed off stage mid-set of a 1976 Chicago Jazz Fusion Festival after a well-known saxophonist publicly chastised him for tainting jazz with gimmicks. Kooper became furious as the outburst escalated into a backstage brawl, and he was barred from attending any more festivals. Kooper used to be in charge and didn't know how to compromise, but his brief partnership with Stephen Stills in the 1970s ended after only a few weeks when creative disagreements turned into yelling bouts in the studio. During one violent argument, Stills allegedly flung a chair across the room and accused Kooper of employing ego-driven choices to ruin the music. For years, both men would not discuss the project's near-instant collapse in public. Kooper's talent was never questioned, but his attitude left burned ground in its path. Many musicians spoke of him behind the scenes with a mixture of caution and reverence. Kooper left a legacy of strained relationships, whether it was with managers he disregarded or producers he disparaged bandmates. According to friends, he took every setback personally, internalizing the rejection before lashing out in private. He retreated for months at a time, harboring old grudges and replaying every argument like a taped recording. There was equally as much turmoil in the personal life behind the musical mayhem. After years of stress, long studio hours, and a lifestyle that kept him away from home, Kooper's marriage ended in the early 1980s. His wife was left to raise their son mostly by herself, as he chased sounds in the studio. Rumors of infidelity on both sides arose in tabloid whispers, adding fuel to an already blazing fire, as many felt abandoned. The divorce was a shambles, with arguments for custody of their son dragging through the courts for years and shouting fights that spilled out of the courtroom and into the media, leaving behind emotional wounds that would never completely heal. Family members have alluded to emotional remoteness by characterizing him as a man who preferred intimacy to instruments. Holidays were not observed. Forgotten birthdays. He was so consumed by music that he had little time for his family. Kooper was too proud to pursue his loved ones after they gave up trying, according to his brother, who once said that Al lived in his brain and frequently pushed away people who tried to get too near. Many of the friends who came and left felt as though they were only required when Kooper needed something. There were reports of unexpected repercussions from small arguments. Friendships destroyed by ego, jealousy, or plain apathy. Some people characterized him as emotionally unavailable, while others said that he was silently tormented by his own inability to connect. Betrayals, paranoia, and the never-ending search for the next musical high, which left him feeling more and more alone and unable to sustain the relationships that were most important to him. Kooper experienced severe health problems as he grew older. He had to spend a considerable amount of time in the hospital in the 1990s due to a near-fatal episode of kidney failure. The hospital room's quiet and steady beeping equipment were a far cry from the cacophony and mayhem of the recording studios he had controlled, and even as his body gradually started to mend, something inside of him broke irreversibly. The doctors weren't sure he would survive the night. He was emotionally saddened but physically crippled by the experience. The world had changed without him when he came out. Kooper, who had previously been a trailblazing figure, felt like a relic as new generations of performers took over the charts. The phone ceased to ring. Invitations from former coworkers stopped coming in. He felt misunderstood by fans who now only recognized him as a faraway figure from a different age, forgotten by the music industry, and abandoned by peers. He withdrew from public life in order to cope, declining films, interviews, and reunions. Friends said he developed paranoia, convinced that without him, history was being rewritten. Despite being recognized for his achievements, he rarely made an in-person appearance, frequently citing health concerns. Insiders said that pride and anguish prevented him from coming out, but he preferred to stay hidden and let the tales spread as he quietly struggled with his own legacy, one that was based on victories but was plagued by loneliness and remorse. Kooper's impact on rock history is indisputable, despite all the controversy. His talent spotting, he found sounds before others could hear them and brought together unlikely artists to create magic. But those same talents were paired with a sharp tongue, a fragile ego, and an inability to forgive or forget. As Dylan's recent remarks confirm, the legacy he leaves behind is complicated. His instinct for arrangement and his willingness to take bold musical risks helped shape generations. Kooper was a provocateur as well as a genius. A visionary who constructed barriers rather than bridges, he was able to transform music but not himself. Admired for his artistic creations yet despised for his conceit, he led a contradictory life. He appeared to be at odds with the people who helped him succeed, even at the height of his career. Every accomplishment came at a personal price. A partner lost a friendship, a bond was severed, and a friendship was burned. And the world is finally seeing the whole picture now that the hush has been broken. Furthermore, it's much messier than anyone anticipated. It's a tale of not only genius but also of lost chances, emotional devastation, and a guy who was frequently his own worst adversary. Al Kooper's brilliance illuminated a generation, but the shadows he left behind were equally